Wednesday, April the 6th, 2011 Municipal Platting Board meeting. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Lendl Story. Steve Abel.
Here.
Ken Fuller.
Here.
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Anastasia Taylor.
Here.
Jody Moses. Daniel Young.
Present.
Brent Cole. Amy McKenzie.
Here. So we have a quorum and not a short board. And the first order of business on the agenda is approval of action summaries. We have action summaries for Monday, January the 3rd, 2011, Wednesday, February the 2nd, 2011, Wednesday, February 2nd, 2011, Monday, February the 21st, 2011, Monday, February 28th, 2011, Monday, March 7th, 2011, and Monday, March 14th, 2011. May I have a positive motion, please? Ms. Taylor moves. Is there a second? Mr. Young seconds. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the action summaries are approved. There are no minutes to be approved this evening. Item C is a special order of business. Are there any disclosures? Mr. Cole?
Yes, I would just like to disclose that I'm a local attorney in town, and I have represented Mr. Danner, like he is on the agenda today, in the past in different matters. I have no financial or other interest in this particular item. I don't know. Sorry. I'm getting used to this process a little bit. But as I was saying before, I am a local attorney, and I have represented Mr. Danner, who I see is on the agenda today, in various capacities, and have given him legal advice over the years on a number of different matters. I know nothing about this particular item, and that's on the agenda today, and I have no financial interest whatsoever in the outcome or the matter. And just another disclosure, I guess, is that I happen to be an owner of some property in the area, so I am familiar with the area and did receive notice of this particular event as required under the ordinances.
So we're talking about case S11643-3, the L Street slide replat of the Anchorage town site?
Yes, ma'am. I apologize for not putting that on the record.
And do you think that you can be fair and impartial in your judgment on this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any discussion on the case? Could I have a motion? I suppose we should have a motion first. Can I have a motion to direct Mr. Cole to participate, please? Ms. Taylor moves, and Ms. McKenzie seconds. Ms. Taylor, would you speak to your motion, please?
Based on the information provided by Mr. Cole, I believe he can be fair and objective in hearing this case.
Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes, and Mr. Cole, you are directed to participate in the L Street slide replat case. Are there any other disclosures? Moving on to the consent agenda, which is the next order of business. The consent agenda consists of all the matters before the board that do not require a public hearing. All items shall be approved by motion without debate, and there is only one item on the consent agenda this evening. It's a time extension. Does any board member wish to remove this item from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing none, may I have a positive motion for approval of the consent agenda? Ms. Taylor moves and Mr. Cole seconds. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved. There's no old business on the agenda this evening, so that brings us to the new business portion. And under new business, we'll follow the procedure that's outlined on the front page of the agenda. If you don't have agenda, they're available in the foyer. What the procedure is that after the item is introduced, the staff gives their presentation, and after the staff presentation, the chair will ask for public testimony, and that's when the public hearing opens. Persons who wish to testify follow time limits established by the Platting Board Rules of Procedure. We keep time by this little timer up here at the front. Petitioners, including all of his representatives, get 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. Representatives of groups such as community councils or PTAs have 5 minutes. An individual has 3 minutes. So during your testimony, the light will be, there's 3 lights. The light will be green. When you have 1 minute left, the light turns yellow, and when your time is up, it turns red and buzzer sounds. And you should sum up if you haven't by that time. When your testimony is complete, you should remain at the podium because the Platting Board may have questions. You may testify only once on any issue unless you're questioned by the board. The front of the agenda also outlines the appeal rights that you have relating to any action that the Platting Board takes. So, with that said, we'll start with the first case, which is case S11597-4, East Edition. May we have the staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request for an 18-month time extension. It's a time extension for the vacation of a portion of Medford Street between 5th and 7th Avenues, as well as a portion of East 6th Avenue. This is the location of the Alaska Sales and Service, and they own property on both the east and west side of Medford Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. They own the west half of Medford Street between 6th and 7th Avenue, and Merrill Field Airport owns the east half of Medford Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. A preliminary plat was approved by the Platting Authority under the short plat process to subdivide 9 lots into 9 different lots that would incorporate the vacated right-of-way into the new lot configuration. It was approved in 2009, and it was subject to 8 conditions. The recording of this final plat is being coordinated with the recording of the final plat for Merrill Field. Alaska Sales and Service originally was the requester for the vacation of the Medford Street between 6th and 7th. In order to obtain the entire width of Medford Street between 6th and 7th Avenues, either Merrill Field would have to have signed the plat, giving their rights to that full right-of-way width to Alaska Sales and Service, or it would have to be incorporated into a replat of Merrill Field. At the time, Merrill Field was doing a replat of their property for the 5th Avenue improvements. They lost a frontage road, and they did record a final plat and did incorporate the east half of Medford Street between 6th and 7th Avenue into their property. A final plat has been submitted. Staff is in possession of a Mylar. The Mylar cannot be recorded until a time extension is approved. This time extension request was submitted prior to the August 1st, 2010 expiration date of the plat. The current conditions are essentially the same as they were when the Platting Authority approved the plat and the Platting Board approved the vacation of the rights-of-way. Reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection, so the department recommends approval of this second 18-month time extension to February 1st, 2012. But as I mentioned, staff is in possession of the Mylar and is really ready to record right now.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing, and is the petitioner or the petitioner's representative available? Come forward and state your name for the record.
Jennifer Brownlee with USKH, representing Alaska Sales and Service. She basically said it all. We've got a signed Mylar waiting to be recorded. This is the final step. I really have nothing more to say.
Okay. Well, we didn't start the clock, so.
Unless there's any questions or anything, we've followed all of the conditions have been met. Everything's been signed off. As she mentioned, there's a signed Mylar sitting there. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Right now, Medford is sitting. Half of it's been officially vacated. The other half is being barricaded off. There's been a few accidents, a few, bumps, and a little issue over there. It really needs to be done as quickly as possible. So we're pushing to get this done if we can.
Any questions for Ms. Brown? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11597 East Edition? Anyone at all? Is there anything else you wish to add, Ms. Brown? She indicates no. We'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. Are there any questions of staff at this time? If not, could I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Cole.
It appears that they've met the requirements and that everything will be recorded. I would move for the approval of the 18-month extension.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the time extension is approved to February 1st, 2012. Moving on to the next case. Next case is case S11643-3, the L Street Slide replat. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. This, too, is a request for an 18-month time extension of the preliminary plat approval for proposed Lot 4C, Block 92, L Street Slide replat. The Platting Board approved the preliminary plat combining two existing lots into one lot with vacation of a 20-foot building setback that ran along the north-south east property boundary. There was also a request to vacate the west 10 feet of a 20-foot wide alley adjoining the east property boundary. However, that request was not approved. The preliminary plat was approved on February 6, 2008, and it was subject to 9 conditions. An 18-month time extension was granted in September 2009. The purpose of this plat is to combine the property to redevelop into condominium, high-end condominium dwelling units. The existing structure is proposed to be removed, and access to this property is from West 9th Avenue. Again, the time extension is requested to provide additional time to resolve the conditions of approval. There was a downturn in the housing market, and the time extension or the development of the property did not proceed as originally anticipated. So the time extension request was received prior to the February 6, 2011 expiration date of the preliminary plat approval and time extension. Reviewing agencies did not have any objection or comment. on the request, and therefore the department does recommend approval of the time extension to August 6, 2013. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing, and could we hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, please?
My name is Frank Danner. My last name is spelled D as in Denver, A-N-N-E-R. I'm the managing partner of the 9th Avenue Park Limited Liability Company. The new managing member, we acquired the interest of the former managing member of the LLC in January of 2011, and he relocated to California. I have been in the process of acquainting myself with the actions that have been taken to date and have been in contact with our engineer, who is Gastaldi and Associates, and we plan to move forward during the year 2011 and 12 in order to meet the city's requirements for the development of the property. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Danner? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in case S11643-3, the L Street slide replat? Anyone at all? Is there anything else you wish to add, Mr. Danner? Okay, thank you. He indicates no. In that case, we'll close the public hearing, and the matter rests with the board. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, could I have a positive motion in this case, please? Ms. Taylor?
In the matter of case S11643-3, L Street slide replat, I motion for approval of the second 18-month time extension.
And Mr. Fuller seconds. Would you speak to your motion, Ms. Taylor?
Based on the information presented in the packet, I believe the time extension is reasonable and appropriate.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the time extension is granted to August 6, 2013. The last case of the evening, and we're on track for a record, I believe, is case S11861-1, Washi subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to subdivide Lot 2A, the southwest corner of the northeast quarter, Section 11, Township 14 North, Range 2 West, into 3 lots for proposed lots 1, 2, and 3 of Washi subdivision, with the vacation of a 25-foot right-of-way known as Rand-Bart Court that runs along the north property boundary. The petition site contains 2.06 acres, with each proposed lot containing approximately 30,000 square feet. The site is zoned R1, single-family residential, and is subject to the provisions of Anchorage Municipal Code 2140-030. There currently exist 2 principal structures on the lot that enjoy legal nonconforming status. An as-built of the property can be found on page 50 of your staff packet. The duplex on proposed Lot 1 enjoys nonconforming rights for a yard encroachment and for a 2-family structure in the R1 single-family residential district. The single-family home on proposed Lot 3 enjoys nonconforming rights for a yard encroachment. There is 1 accessory building on proposed Lot 2 that is not a permitted principal use in the district. For that to be permitted, a single-family structure would have to be constructed. There is also a shed on proposed Lot 1 that is within 10 feet of the duplex. This shed needs to be moved to a conforming location. Proposed Lot 1 and 2 also share a common driveway. If the petitioner wishes to continue use of this shared driveway, we ask that the petitioner enter into a shared access agreement with the municipality. AWU water and sanitary sewer mains are located in Mousel Street. The on-site section requests the septic systems of the property be decommissioned and that the petitioner be required to connect to the sanitary sewer main. The petitioner's request to vacate the 25-foot right-of-way known as Rambart Court has been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. Reviewing agencies have had no objection to the request. Access to the adjoining properties is provided by dedicated and constructed rights-of-way, and traffic circulation in the area is found to be sufficient. This right-of-way appears to be in excess of municipal need. With that said, the department would like to recommend approval of this plat and vacation subject to the conditions listed on pages 7 and 8 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. Through the chair, it's my understanding when we vacate right-of-way that it's typically the right-of-way is split between the adjacent property owners on either side, and this appears to be coming all into Lot 1. Can you address that for me?
I believe the property to the north, when it was subdivided, was vacated. There was a right-of-way that was vacated.
You mean Rambart, excuse me, as a follow-up, Rambart Court used to be 50 feet wide?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing, and could we hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, please?
My name is Dwayne Mark Seward. I'm the petitioner's representative and also the land surveyor on this project. And I want to just thank the board and the staff, especially the staff and the hard work they put on that to work this case out, where everything was pretty much in agreement with their findings. I'll be quick on a few comments, what the plans are to highlight the minor concerns. The building on Lot 2 is currently going to be converted to a primary structure, and it'll be meeting the municipal requirements by code. The shed on Lot 1 that's too close to the building has already been demolished. The common driveways will be done by the easement, as stated in their findings and recommendations. Excuse me. Rampart Court, that on page 20, it kind of highlights the reasons, some dates there. I'll kind of summarize that because it is an important history for that. It was dedicated in 72, and the adjoining properties at that time were still raw, unsubdivided properties. Eagle Glen sub to the north was subdivided in 81, and at that time, the BLM section line easement north of the property line was vacated there. So that left any remaining BLM easement, the other half south of that line, which was on this property. Lot 1A to the west was replatted in 1997, and they vacated that portion of that 50-foot section line easement across their north boundary, and at that time there was also easements on the west boundary and their south boundary, so they vacated all three of the 50-foot. And so that just left the balance of this little 25-foot right-of-way in between all these new subdivision plats there. I think that's about all it is, and I can be glad to answer any questions you have and reserve any remaining time.
We have almost 8 minutes left. Are there any questions for Mr. Seward? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11861-1, Washi subdivision? Anyone at all? Seeing none, Mr. Seward, is there anything else you wish to add? He indicates not. So we'll close the public hearing, and the matter rests with the board. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, could I have a positive motion in this case, S11861-1? Ms. Taylor.
In the matter of case S11861-1, Wasky subdivision, I motion for approval of the request to vacate the 25-foot right-of-way, subject to the condition on page 7.
And Mr. Fuller seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please?
Based on the information presented in the report and by staff and the petitioner, I believe it's a reasonable request.
Any other discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the vacation request is approved. Moving on to the plat. Could I have a positive motion on the plat? Ms. Taylor moves, and I have, yes, Ms. Taylor.
In the matter of case S11861-1, I motion for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 5, listed on pages 7 and 8 in the staff packet. And for the same reasons as I like the right-of-way vacation.
Mr. Abel seconds. Any other discussion? Any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the plat is approved for 18 months, subject to the 5 conditions. And in a timely fashion, that brings us to the end of the new business portion. And the agenda indicates that there's nothing under persons to be heard, no reports. Any board member comments? Could I have a motion for adjournment? So moved. We are adjourned. Woohoo!